Eoghan Corry, travel and aviation journalist, is with us now. How you doing, Eoghan?
Oh, very good, Jonathan. Things have changed since we last spoke. The digital COVID certs, the new versions are all arriving in people's inboxes as of this morning. So things moving very fast on the travel front.
I've seen that, and we were only asking when they might start to appear, and here they are. Oh, I want to talk to you about Novak Djokovic, because you've been writing about it this morning, it kind of makes sense to me. You and I have talked at great length about people planning trips and making sure everything is in the right order and knowing that they're doing the best they can in the situation they find themselves in. Yet Djokovic knew he was flying into a storm, albeit one he thought would be a little calmer than it has transpired to be. What about the psychology of somebody who thinks that they're bigger than perhaps the problem they're trying to overcome?
I don't think Djokovic knew what he was flying into. He sort of left all of this to other people. And he certainly isn't the only one who got this medical exemption. He's the only one who ended up in a quarantine hotel. So I suspect that, the point I was making this morning is sports people don't think that normal rules apply to them, because they don't. All through history, sports people have been given this sort of golden ticket, this exemption, and the fans and the public are generally very happy about it. The big interesting thing is the way that things turned so heavily on him. Certainly Australia was an angry place over last year's Australian Open, and the fact that tennis players were allowed to fly in when restrictions were even more strict. I think the phrase I used in the Independent this morning, that it was he was fondued on the barbecue, or the fondue of social media, tennis raclette. I hear the groans all around the country, but I think we've learned more about Australian politics. This tells us more about Australian politics than it does about tennis, or indeed the individuals concerned.
But does it not say something about the sport and elite sports that they're above it? We know from having heard about soccer players that
Absolutely.
they have amongst the lowest vaccination rates
Absolutely.
out there, purely because they think that the rules that apply to everybody else don't apply to them. And whatever about people's opinion on vaccination, when you're in the public eye like that, you know you're going to come under scrutiny.
There's no doubt. The soccer situation is quite interesting, because they're almost cocooned. They're already cocooned away from society, from fans, from things like that of necessity. But the way things have operated since COVID arrived is they've been very frequently tested. So they're spending a lot of time in their own company. They're separated almost from the normal going about your business that the rest of us do. It's an interesting one that internationally there is an acceptance almost straight away that the rules won't apply to sports stars. And we see it in the English Premiership soccer. So many of them are not vaccinated. The Callum Robinson case exploded a bit in Ireland, but he's not alone. I'd heard Jurgen Klopp complaining quite recently that Liverpool have a very crowded schedule of matches compared with some of their championship or some of their Premiership rivals, because so many of their players are vaccinated. They don't have the COVID outbreaks that other clubs have. And into all of this, we have the Australian Open, iconic sport, a country that loves its tennis, and a very angry people. And I think what Djokovic, when he landed in the airport, expected to be waved through, as it's quite clear from what Craig Riley's been saying, Craig Tiley's been saying this morning. Other players were given the same medical exemption, and it turns out the medical exemption was given by the state government and not by the federal government. So hence we're back into something he didn't create, a row within Australia, and a little bit of grandstanding, it has to be said, by the Australian politicians.
Yeah, and again, it's hard to, but there is a measure of sympathy that you'd have for Djokovic, because he's been caught in one way, even though perhaps in other ways he brought it upon himself. Eoghan Corry, travel writer, we'll talk to you again soon.
Always a great pleasure, Jonathan.
Stay with us here on the Pat Kenny Show.